Just hopping on, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let us know in the chat where you might be joining from. But we will dive on in because we want to get to as many questions as possible. And my name is Rob. I'm the Director of Marketing and Events at Power to Fly. And today we're going to be talking with the amazing co-founders of Prepare to Launch about navigating career relaunches and pivots in the age of AI. I honestly think we don't get more questions about a topic than career pivots, so this is definitely very appropriate right now. Just real quick, wanted to share our code of conduct. It looks like a big scary wall of legalese, but basically what it means is don't be a jerk. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to shoot me a DM. Just to remind you all, we are loving any kind of participation that you can share today. So feel free to turn your camera on if you're eating lunch or anything like that. Feel free to turn it off. Your microphones will be off automatically for the entirety of the event. Good news is we are recording today, so you don't have to take notes. We will be sending out this recording probably as early as tomorrow. So if there is a factoid that you missed, don't worry. It will be delivered directly to your inbox very soon. And lastly, we really do want to hear from you. So if you have questions for Kelley and Susan, drop those into the chat. We'll also get to a lot of the questions that you pre-submitted, but we would love to hear from you. Also, if you want to use this as a networking opportunity, we'd love that also. So if you want to add your LinkedIn or anything like that into the chat to connect with your fellow professionals on the line, that is great too. Just to tell you a little bit about Power to Fly, if you are new to us, we are a trusted community of over 115,000 plus domain qualified experts. And we have really a track record that no standard job board can match. We're a 100% woman-led company backed by Morgan Stanley, and we're really specialized in the product and engineering and AI skills, but really can help you at whatever field you might be in. We have events, as I was just telling Kelley and Susan, for pharmacy technicians coming up. We just did an event for turbine engineers. We did an event with a leading beverage company. So really anything, check out powertofly.com and you can apply to thousands of open roles. But I do want to introduce you to today's speakers that we have, I should say, I have had the good fortune to speak with many times here in the past. And we've got Susan, who began her career in Fortune 50 tech, where she rapidly moved up the ranks from producer to manager to staff roles and earned many top performance honors. But after taking a career break to care for her children, she became a pioneer for flexible workplace as a partner in a consulting firm. And later, she ran robust executive coaching practices. She's a LinkedIn learning author instructor, and as you're going to hear a lot more about today, the co-founder of Prepare to Launch You, a learning company that provides instruction, inspiration, and community to women navigating work-life transitions along the continuum of life. Susan, love for you to share anything else you want to share with our audience today.
No, I'm just really excited to be here. And I do want to qualify. The reason I really want Summer to stay is because Kelley knows I'm building a new pool. And I
Oh
just,
my
I don't
gosh.
know, like we've been telling her little guy, we're going to go on Susie's pool, but it's just a hole in the ground. So, but my favorite season is fall. I just wanted to come a little later. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, sometimes it gets warm into the fall. It's
It does.
global
I'm just
warming
hoping for
after
it.
all, right? So, yeah,
Thanks.
maybe there'll still be time to use it. If not, 2027, crossing
That's
our
good.
fingers. I'll expect my invite in the mail shortly.
We're close enough. Thanks.
Exactly.
Love to do everything. We love doing things with Power to Fly. So thanks for having
Yes,
us.
for sure.
Thank you so much. And love to bring up your partner in crime here, Kelley, who began her career in education as a teacher. We love that. And later in administration and curriculum development, providing educational consulting services to urban school systems. After taking a career break to raise her children, there's a common thread here I'm sure we're going to explore. So she opened a thriving practice as a CTI trained certified co-active coach, She is also a LinkedIn learning author and instructor, and as I said, the co-founder of Prepare to Launch You. So, Kelley, anything else you want to share with the audience?
Well, we were just talking before we hopped on with everybody about the audience having a lot of pivoters.
Mhm.
And that is something I did. It's something I know I understand really well. And you pivot, but you do take all of that valuable experience from wherever you cut your teeth and bring it into this next chapter. So, for those of you that are in that pivoting realm and really thinking, maybe I want to move to something else. We know this, we know that lane very well. We understand that lane, we've lived it. And
And
so,
we've lived the career break and return too. We both
yes,
have four
Mm.
kids, so we
yeah,
definitely understand that as well.
yeah, yeah.
I love that. And real quick, before I dive into our questions, just want to acknowledge the chat. We've got a great audience here. We've
Yeah,
got
all
Texas,
over.
where it is 104 degrees still, so very much summer. And also Washington State, where it's 96 degrees, so
Yeah,
very hot there as well. More Texas, Alberta, Canada, Houston, Maryland, Denmark. Denmark. Okay.
I
So
know.
Vegas. So thank you all so much. Feel free to continue to introduce yourself in the chat. I'm sure we're gonna have some more people kind of jumping on in as we get going. But I want to go through some of the questions that
Sure.
we
Yeah.
had kind of pre-submitted for you, Kelley and Susan, from the audience. And once again, feel free to add in more questions and we'll get to as many as possible. The kind of first kind of real subtopic a lot of people wanted to talk about, which you've already mentioned, is the career breaks and then
Mhm.
re-entry there. So someone was asking, how can I best showcase upskilling and project work I did during a long career break? And we hear this all the time that people, yes, they're taking a career break, but they're still working. They're getting certifications, they're doing volunteer groups, all things like that. They might be working even part-time, but maybe don't feel, oh, should I be putting that on my resume? So how should they be showcasing that upskilling and project work during a break?
I'm going to just talk quick about
Yeah,
the mindset and then
sure,
the nuts and bolts.
sure.
I think your mindset around this needs to be that your career break is an asset and not a liability. That's something that we say all of the time. And the way that you present it is what really matters. And so you have to believe it yourself that there is value in that time away, there is value in that break, even if it is just for a short time. You've done valuable things. And how you showcase that is the second part of it. But you have to start with you first and how you're coming at it so that you have the confidence to articulate that in a really believable and memorable way when you are sitting networking with someone or if you're on an interview. So I just want to say that and then
Well, one thing that can help with that mindset is just understanding that you're not that unique. So I'm in the process of getting a book published. So I have tons of data in my head. 80% of women take some type of career break. So it may be like Kelley and I
right.
left tech. You left
Yeah.
school, your
Yeah.
school system because it was just untenable any other way. But now we're finding that because there's a little bit more flexibility in the workplace, people might stall. So a lot of women will stay. And when we say women, it's because 96% of caregiving is done by women. And it may be children, but it may also be elder care. And sometimes it's both.
Mhm.
But so the women who aren't maybe saying, okay, I just have to stop for a while, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 20. We've had students in our program who've been out
Up
for
to,
26
yeah.
years. Um, or it's, I'm going to stay in this role until my youngest gets into kindergarten. That tends to be kind of the threshold once my kids are in full day school. So you're still taking somewhat of a career pause though, because you are skipping promotions that you have earned and would be have expected to take, except that you're not doing that for a period of time. Or maybe you're taking a smaller client load or a lesser team, or you're working part-time, or you're working fully remote. All of those things are part of the continuum of the career break or the career pause. So knowing that you're not alone, that the vast majority of other women professionals have done or are doing the same thing is really helpful. In terms of the tactics, how do you do it? You want to present any work that you do in the same way that you would present your conventional, regular in a job at a company work. One of Kelley's favorite Susanism is work, whether it's paid or unpaid. So there's no need to call out on your resume, I took 5 years off to take care of my kids. Instead, capture those 5 years in the context that makes the most sense. So if during that time you were doing small ad hoc one-off projects or pro bono work, you might call that time you being a contractor, or you being a consultant, or you having your own company. If the majority of that work was unpaid and you were working in your community, instead of saying, PTO volunteer, talk about being a community leader and talk about the work that you did for the school system, not for the, Cherry Brook PTO. That doesn't sound so good. But saying, West Hartford Public School System, enrichment advocate or development professional, meaning you're pulling money in for nonprofits or for school projects. So using the most professional language to talk about what you did. A few caveats here. We are not, the CEO of the Davey family. We are not, household engineers or mompreneur. We're not using any of that cutesy language. It does not fly. I ran a big team. I had a lot of people working for me. I'm a woman with 4 kids. I see that and I ditch it. So we're talking professionally. The key here is you just need to account for the space. You don't want to take a whole page up talking about the things that you did that were unconventional. Just give me enough so I know that during those years, it's pretty clear to me that you left a big job and you're doing something lesser now. I can talk to you about it in an interview. I just need to know a highlight reel of what you did during that time that's relevant to what I want you to do. So showing me also achievements, accomplishments. So you may have run an event for the elementary school, and maybe you raised $8,000. As a business leader, I don't care about $8,000. That's pennies to me. So instead of telling me I raised $8,000, talk about the fact that you grew revenue year over year. Last year they made 4, this year they made 8. So when you took over that particular event, you grew revenues by 100%, or you doubled revenues. Instead of talking about working with volunteers, just talk about the number of staff members you managed or you led. Probably led's a better word. You don't need to say I was the mom volunteer for recess duty. Instead, talk about how you led an enrichment program and coordinated a staff of 20. So we're using professional language without going too far. We're not presenting it as an executive role, but we're talking about it in very professional terms and showing the impact that it had with some type of measurable data. Okay.
I love that. Yeah, I was gonna say that exact thing as you were talking there, Susan, about showing the actual numbers, because you might think, oh, I'm working on raising money for X, my local theater or something like
Yep.
that. But,
Yep.
and I love that you were saying, okay, but I was able to actually increase the money raised this much
Right.
year over year, getting into those specifics, because
Yep.
that's such a great thing that you should be putting on your resume no matter what. But I think it
Right.
can get lost when we're outside of the traditional workplace. So
Right.
keeping
But
that
knowing
in
that the
mind.
majority of women are in the same boat, they're
Yeah.
all having to explain something. Because, for example, if I see a resume and someone is in the same role for 8 years, I'm thinking, well, why weren't they promoted? Right.
Hmm.
These are things that we need to be able to address in conversation. I do have a question though. Kelsey wrote the word lesser with a question mark. Kelsey, do you want to just clarify that? Because
Yeah,
there,
maybe Kelsey, if you can write in the chat, we'll
yeah,
get there. And then I know Kelly's also been adding all these great links as well. Don't worry,
yeah,
we're also going to share everything after the event
yeah.
also, but this is super helpful. So click those, that you get them up in another tab and you can check them out after our conversation today.
Susan was sort of lightly explaining ways that you can take work that you've done and repackage it so that it is in professional language. She was talking you through that. Our fall webinar, is that part of what we're doing?
Yeah, that's going to be, we're talking about yeah, so that we're doing our own webinar on
That's why I
Thursday that's
posted
about talking about your career break, and we create kind of some easy steps to follow to make the story believable, compelling, and also just to frame it like we've just described on a resume, but in a conversation so that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Kelly, lesser role, did I mishear what you said? I'm not sure what I don't know if that used that word, but I think maybe what I was saying is that I want you to spend some time clarifying those years that aren't conventional employment, but I do want to make sure that I, as the reader of the resume, can see on that first page the work that's going to mean the most to me and is going to be most recognizable to me. So if you were a software engineer up until 2021, and then you took a career break and you're doing community leadership, I need to see that software engineer
Above
role
the fold.
above the fold of the page. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And you were kind of already touching a bit on this in terms of, oh, I see someone who maybe hasn't had a promotion in X years. Is
Yeah.
that a red flag? And someone else was asking, what's the best way to list a career gap on a resume so it doesn't look like a red flag? I think you mentioned you have some people in your programs who have been out of work for 20 years,
Yeah, for
not
sure.
just maybe 6 months. Okay, that's probably pretty easy to explain away.
Right.
But the longer it gets, people could say, oh gosh. And I would imagine often that's just a stumbling block, a hurdle, a roadblock,
For
even to
sure.
just apply because it's like, how the heck am I going to explain this? So how would both of you suggest displaying that or explaining that so it doesn't feel like a red flag?
So there are a couple things. So what we just talked about, Kelley talked about really getting your head behind it first is really important. And then when I talked about the strategy of how to present it on a resume, it matters much more as a hiring manager to me. I need much more of an explanation if the resume gap is at the top of your resume. So for someone, let's say someone, we've had students come from
Yep.
our program, been out for 20 years. But if they've been working for the last two,
Maybe as a
no,
paraprofessional,
I'm actually
different
talking like
things.
if they actually
Yeah.
already returned
Oh,
to
okay.
work and they have a professional job in their lane, or maybe they pivot into something new. The big risk with the career break is I don't necessarily want to be the first one who hires you after it. So my point being that if you had a break and you've been back for 8 years, you don't really even need to talk about it. You can just leave that space blank unless it's 20 years. But if it's a few years, you can leave it blank. The more the more important is accounting for the time that's at the top of the resume that may not have been in your traditional mold of work. I think what we need to, I know you'll have questions about this later, but I think we need to address it early. You need to recognize that if you have an unconventional resume, if you are pivoting, if you have a career break, if you have a pause or a stall, you're not going to get a job by applying online anyway.
Right.
And that doesn't apply to Power to Fly because the companies that Rob and his peers solicit and have relationships with understand that the people on this website might have unconventional movement in their resume. I call it a crooked career path,
Mhm.
right? But if you're applying on a regular ATS, on LinkedIn, on Indeed, you're not going to get through. Only 2% of applicants who apply online get an interview. That still means thousands and thousands of people are getting interviews because thousands and thousands of people apply for every job. So if I'm getting 5,000 applicants for my job, I want to train my algorithms to weed out everybody, including people like Kelley and me,
Mhm.
Mhm.
because we aren't conventional candidates. So you cannot use that route. You have to use networking. We can
And I
talk.
would jump in too, just to say, thank you for the kind words about Power to Fly. But I would say too, even if you apply through a site like Power to Fly, if X company you apply to is also doing an event on Power to Fly,
Mhm.
if you join that, your
Wow.
name's going to be in another list. So again, and there might be a chance to ask a question directly to that leader, and then they're going to go, "Oh, that was Susan who asked that question, right? Like I'm going to remember that name." Even if you don't get a chance to do that, though, your name is still going to be on one more list, and a
Mhm.
much shorter list, by the way, that's going to be submitted to people. So it's even in that case, I think it's so key to continue that networking even if it's a bit more abstract networking than getting together and having a coffee with someone.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I want to say something else about like how do we avoid those red flags? There is such intrinsic value in you going through the process of talking about your career break, of, really setting yourself up, taking a good solid look at what things are valuable, what skill sets have I gained that are valuable that I'm saying repackage, but I can repackage those in professional language on my resume so that they are seen as value to whatever this job is that I am in pursuit of. And just the act of thinking through that, looking at what you've done in that time away, and then writing it into your resume is helping you not be a red flag when you are networking with someone, because you're going to feel much more confident about how you're articulating yourself and how you're telling you what we call your career break story. So I'm gonna pop something in the chat. We have a really specific way that it's sort of a template that we follow when you're talking about your career
Yeah.
break story. And we ask that all of you like download that and just practice that for yourself. Sit down and really think about how you are going to explain your career break. And the template will walk you through how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to pop that in the chat.
Tone
Yeah.
is also really important. So you're not apologizing. We love to tell our caregivers, whether it's caring for children or adults, that we're doing important work when we're caregiving. We are we are raising the next generation of surgeons and leaders and power to fly people and teachers. It's very important work. So we should never apologize for doing it. Remember that. Every person you network with, every person you interview with has benefited from someone like you being in their community. Because when we're home and we're raising children or taking care of elder care, we're making sure that the services, the municipal services or the state services meet the needs of the people we love. And when we do that, we're creating opportunity and providing resources for everyone else. So when we take the school volunteer, I'm sure for those of you who are moms, you've done that, right? When you put your effort into a school program to raise money or to bring in a speaker or to purchase learning technologies, that's not just benefiting your child and their classroom. It's benefiting all the other children who come through that school and through that classroom. So having that, sometimes we have an opportunity in an interview to educate the person we're talking to. That, the work that I did was important. It was important for my children, but it's important for children that you may have someday. Because what people like make me take the talents and the skills, the experiences that we had running a $50 million business at 30 years old and repackage it and repurpose it in the community, you're getting really great services for your family, for the people you love as well. So to Kelley's point about mindset, that's another thing to remind yourself. And don't be shy about speaking it, about educating the person that you're talking to about the value of community work and
Mhm.
how those skills were repurposed and what they accomplished.
Yeah,
And
I think oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead,
no,
Kelley.
I go ahead. You say what you're going to say, Rob, but then
No,
I want.
I was just going to say, I mean, these are great. And see, Samuel's comment. And I think just going back to what you were saying, Susan, yes,
Yeah.
in about 80+% of cases, the caretaker or person maybe taking a career break for that reason
Yeah.
are women. But I would even think, and I don't have the data to match to have this. Obviously, there's lots of hurdles in the workplace that women have that men don't have. But I'm almost wondering if men even a career break, it's almost more of a red flag to some companies because it's almost more accepted for women in some ways than I'm wondering if for men they're like, well, you should be working. Like maybe that's even something that
Well, it's interesting.
men
My
are
private
encountering.
practice is almost all male.
Mm.
And I have one, he's actually he does work in film and he took the career break because his wife's job was provided benefits and it wasn't freelance. And so, but my general finding from this, and it's anecdotal, but I've had, probably several hundred male clients over a long period of time. Because it's more novel, they get a little bit more credit for it.
Mm.
So yes, it
Interesting.
can be a little bit more red flag. Certainly, it's not going to help them if they're applying online. But as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't really help anybody. But when they're in an interview, it's almost so novel. It's like, wow, that is so cool that you did that, especially if it's a woman interviewer. If it's a male interview, you can go 50-50. So there's the novelty of it. There's also the risk that women, because we are the people who birth babies, there's a lot of even early judgment. So where women are perceived as they may have a child, there's a statistic that says 40%, 25% of all women have asked if they have been asked in an interview if they have a child. But when the further up the line you go, the more you're asked. So the minute you're entering management, there's a 40% chance likelihood that you'll be asked if you have or plan to have a child. So these things are always going to be, whether it's a man taking time off for caregiving or a woman having a child, there are always going to be issues. I think we have an opportunity to educate the public on the value. We don't survive as a species, folks, if we don't have children.
Yeah.
Right? We have to have children. And the fact that the smart woman in your department is having a child should be like a good thing because they're going to be a good parent. They're going to raise a smart kid. So I think we just need to talk about it more openly And Samuel, to your point, I did not mean to exclude men. It's just that the majority
Yeah.
of the cases, the vast majority are female. I think you have an opportunity to lean into the novelty of it. And it's kind of badass. So good for you.
Yeah. And I
oh,
think
sorry, go ahead. Okay, no,
no, but
you go.
and it's funny, Rob, because that's exactly where I was going, was to address the male side of this, because I do also think this is a human experience, and anyone
Mhm.
who takes a career break of any period of time, it could be from a layoff. There is such a loss of confidence that happens during that time, and to be able to lean into what like, so there you go. That's the way to leverage it and to turn it into an asset, right? It's the novel aspect of the fact that you stayed home during this time as a male. And you know, if you're feeling not so confident about putting yourself back out there again, where, you know, sometimes this happens with our students that are older and they feel like, oh my gosh, my age is deterring me from landing jobs, getting an opportunity, you know, I'm being passed over. And so we talk a lot with our students about how can you turn that into an asset. And so the way that we explain that is, you know, do you want to actually just kind of
Yeah,
give that as like a
yeah, I think it's a really easy one to deal with. I mean, if we, let's say you're our age and your kids are grown, right? And you're not dealing with snow days and you're available, is to not wait for someone, because no one's going to say, Susan, I'm afraid you're too old. They might say something more vague, like, you know, you're too experienced or you're going to be bored in this role. But I like the idea of, you know, what the objections are going to be when you walk in the door. My general philosophy is throw them out there. You be the one to talk about it. So
Mhm.
to say something like, if I were interviewing with Rob, to say to Rob, you know, Rob, I've met a lot of people at the company here at Power to Fly. I've walked around the office or I've looked on LinkedIn. It looks like you've got a really broad, interesting group of people. A lot of them are pretty young. And I understand what they're going through. It's really hard to be mid 40s, kind of just at the pinnacle of your career where you're starting to take off, and you've got to deal with snow days and teacher conference days and half days and school vacations and summers. And I've been there. And as you can see, I'm not there anymore. My kids are all in college or older. So I'm at the point now that I can be available. And I want you to think about what that kind of value, that accessibility that I can bring to your team. So when half the team is working from home with 3 kids out of school because it's snowing, I can come in. I can be there. And I look forward to being that kind of utility player and being able to step up for my teammates, because people did it for me back when I was in the thick of it.
So when you
Yeah.
look at that career break template that we put in the chat, that would be that kind of falls into like that third paragraph that you're going to be creating. That would be if you are experiencing any kind of what feels like ageism. How do I leverage the fact that I am older, I am more experienced? You have time. You have time on your
Mhm.
hands, and so when you're going through the exercise, that will really help you be able to articulate that.
I
And I
love
also
that. Yeah.
The other thing with age is, I mean, we had somebody submitted a question about doing something over 30 and we laughed. Like my 2 kids are 32 and 31. I mean, my two older kids.
We actually
We
laughed because
laughed.
it was the millennials and versus the
The Gen Z, and they
Gen Z.
didn't even include the Gen
And it was
Xers.
like, wait, we're Gen Xers.
No,
Tuesday for now
I
we're
think I
way
technically might even be a baby boom. I'm right on the
I
cusp.
think she's the last year of baby
But my
boomers.
point is that a lot of it's a lot of is how you address it. So I'm over 60, she's over 50. Neither of us feels old, neither of us acts old, and neither of us will bring old energy into a job.
Right.
You could be 30 and have old energy. So really, it's what are you telling yourself? We are seeing the age of retirement continuing to lengthen for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
You know, it made sense back when the rules were written post World War II that you retire at 62 because you're dead at 68, right? It doesn't make any sense financially, socially, intellectually to stop working at 62 or 65 if you're going to live to 90.
Right.
So you will see a lot of our very senior executives, except for in tech where they tend to be younger, a lot of those in financial services, in manufacturing, in professional services, they're all over 70. Some of them are 80.
Yeah.
So the paradigm has shifted. So the age at which we're considered old has shifted as well. So just make sure that you're not bringing the age issue with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think often what I've heard in the countless events that we've done is that can be a benefit when you are pivoting, because often the question we hear all the time is, okay, I worked in industry X, I want to pivot to industry Y, but I can I make that pivot? And what I've heard time and time again from hiring managers and recruiters is we're looking at the core skills, we're looking at the soft skills, and those are the things that actually grow over time. We can
Mhm.
teach you about X thing that you're going to need for this new job. What we can teach you is what you have learned over the course of those 20 plus years. And those are definitely the things to highlight. And you can then be honest in an interview, say, I'm moving into this new career. I don't know about, this specific thing for the industry, but I'm eager to learn. And I bring all this other experience with me.
Another thing to consider though is that there's been a cultural shift because the Gen Z and the younger Gen Y
Yes.
employees entering, they're only staying in a job for about 18 months.
Yeah.
They are much less interested in advancement, much more interested in quality of life.
Mhm.
They're interested in acquiring skills and learning new things. So if you look at the career ladder that those of us who are older entered, you entered on a ring and you climbed up, that's gone. We now look at a career lattice where people are intentionally moving laterally and sometimes even taking a dip. Sometimes when you pivot, there was one person who submitted a question about, not feeling great about maybe taking a career dip because they want to pivot. Instead of looking at that negatively, you look at it as skill acquisition.
Yeah.
My youngest son went to West Point. He's an Army Ranger, bright kid. He's going to be transitioning into the civilian workplace shortly. And he will probably have to tell, he's captain and he's got a lot of special forces training. He's going to have to take a step that will feel like it's a step down, but that's okay because he's pivoting. The key is, and this is what I'm coaching him on, is that when you take that step back, as if same for any of you that might have acquired a lot of workplace experience, institutional knowledge, specific skills, when you pivot, the ramp should be faster. So to the person who asked that question, I'm taking a step back. That doesn't feel good. Well, you're taking a step back with purpose.
Yeah.
The key is that your employer understands that you're taking the step back so you can really learn the nuts and bolts of that product or that particular role, but that you will accelerate more quickly than the 21-year-old who just graduated from state. You're not that equivalent.
And we're not just making that up. We actually have seen this with students that have gone through our program where they have taken a step back and then like their promotion rate is, I would love to do the metrics on it because it's like it really is incredible how they are promoted really quickly.
One thing I've heard too is maybe you are been working for 30 years and you want to take a step back too and be very upfront about that. Say,
Definitely.
hey, I have been a manager. You might think I'm overqualified for this position, but I want to be an individual contributor. I just want to spend my day coding. I don't want to have to worry about all that other stuff. And making it very clear from the beginning, it's like this is my pivot. I'm actually
Absolutely.
want to be an individual contributor because so many times we've heard people say, "Oh, this person is they feel too experienced for this role," but maybe they want to be in that role.
That's a great point. We talk about that, I think, in one of the templates that she put up where it's explaining, and as you said, but also anticipating it instead of waiting for them. Because sometimes if they have a concern about you, they won't ask. They'll go through the interview and then they'll just write you off. So if you know you're walking into the interview with an elephant in the room, call it out.
Yeah.
Whether it's your career break or your age or the fact that you are overqualified. We've had plenty of students who come through our programs to say, I was a director. I don't want to do that now. I want to do manageable work that I enjoy. To your example, I want to code and go home. And that's all I want.
Yeah.
And when you lead with it, it's much more convincing than if you say it in a defensive moment where they're kind of attacking you, say, well, why would you want this?
Yeah.
Right? It feels a little bit more authentic when you can lead with it. And then you own the narrative and you're not waiting for that question that might be scaring you a little bit because then you're distracted.
Yeah, I want to address some of the questions that we have in the chat because there's a lot. So it was moving fast and furious there for a while. I want to get to Shakira's bigger question, but just the shorter question I think Shakira was asked isn't that illegal? I think was referring to like asking if you have children or you
Oh,
plan on
absolutely. But
having
it still
children.
happens all the
Yeah.
time.
I
Yeah.
think it was it's the same thing I would say, Shakira or anyone else with ageism questions, as we've had an ageism expert who it happens to be my mother-in-law actually speak
Oh,
often. As she says all the time, if it's not recorded, if it's you and one other person, There's
Yeah.
nothing you could do about it, unfortunately. So, I mean, you might know that's
The
not the
way I
place
usually
you
recommend that
want
you
to
handle
work.
it is to
With a
handle it with a
smile.
little bit of humor, to say, well, actually, Rob, you can't ask me that.
Yeah.
But since you asked, yes, I have 4 children and they're all doing great. And, or if they're little, I have a great nanny, whatever it is that might be prompting you to ask that question, is one way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be in a moment where you're catching someone asking you an illegal question. To come at it like this doesn't usually benefit you.
But if you come at it with a
Mhm.
smile and a little bit
Can
of
ask
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And Shakira's other question, which I think is great, I was laid off from my position in December 2025, and I used that time since then to become certified in a completely different field, health insurance, to project manager slash scrum master. Congratulations. I haven't gotten a new job yet, so how do I account for that if I technically wasn't in school?
Okay, well, a couple things. I'm a big believer in no months on resumes, because they almost always, if you just put the years, it benefits you if you have a break. So, Shakira, in your case, even if you just collected your last paycheck or your PTO or something January 1st of 2026, then you can put your years of employment of whatever you started through 2026. And now you've got, in your case, a whole year of kind of float time to deal with. And then you would put your education. This is something that's a harder thing to capture on a resume, but a very easy thing to capture on a cover letter. I am a big believer in cover letters. We teach a whole section just on cover letters.
Yeah.
Cover letters that are written, first of all, a cover letter sets you apart because you took the time to do it. If you have to write it yourself, it cannot be ChatGPT written. It needs to be short, punchy, with just a few bullets. It cannot restate what you've already said in your resume, because I already read that. It's got to point something out. So in this case, it would be in the cover letter, mentioning, you may have noticed that I ended my employment at such and such earlier this year. During that time, I took coursework to
Right.
pivot my skills, and I'm interested in Scrum Master work now, which is why I'm applying for this job. So that would be a place to put that. If the where you're applying doesn't require a cover letter, you still should submit one. If there isn't a place to submit one, just make it the first page of your resume and save it as a PDF. You absolutely want to do that. It sets you apart from the person who's just having a bot submit resumes for them everywhere.
Which
Okay.
you shouldn't do, by the way, because we've heard
Never
this
do.
from recruiters. So don't
Yes,
use the bots. You're only hurting yourself and basically everyone else.
absolutely. And
Yes.
everybody else,
Yes.
because you're just flooding that inbox with more applicants, um,
Yes, yeah.
that aren't even qualified. Yeah.
Question from Kelsey: applying online versus in-person networking, as you were kind of talking about, Susan. How does this affect those of us who apply and work remotely?
It doesn't affect it at all. I mean, whether you're applying for a remote job or a fully present job or something hybrid in between, you should be networking to find that job. So, and the easiest place, I mean, the easiest place to network at scale is on LinkedIn. And Kelly's going to pop something in to the chat where we have a little bit of instruction on that. But you want to find people on LinkedIn, and certainly people in your human network as well. It's just that you can't reach out to as many as quickly, or have as much reach without using LinkedIn. So finding people who work in the organizations where you might want to work, or in the industries where you might want to work, or in the role. So organization, industry, or role, and networking with them to get connections. They may not have an inroad to the exact place you want to work, but they know other people. And the strategy that we teach is called connect, message, and meet. The mistake most people make is they'll say, oh, I know so and so work. We live in ESPN land, and everybody wants to work at ESPN. So, although my experience has been they haven't been the best employer, but
We actually don't work for them, but
yeah,
that's like a whole.
it's sexy work. So, right. So I want to find someone who works at ESPN. I'm going to reach out to them, and I'm just going to say, hey, Rob, I saw you at the concert last night, or we go to the same church or whatever. And I'm really interested in working at LinkedIn, and let's connect. Well, if Rob doesn't connect with me, I don't get to ask him to connect with me for another year, right? If I load up my connection request, now I want to have lunch with you, now I want a job. That is, to me, is someone who gets a lot of LinkedIn requests. That's just baggage I may not want to entertain. But if Rob just says, hey, we live in the same community, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Well, you know what? He lives in my community. Sure, I'll connect with him. And then he can come back and ask to meet with me once he's made the connection. We have a story of a student who took our program and she followed that advice. There was a woman who worked at University of Santa Cruz where she wanted to work. UC Santa Cruz,
Mhm.
where she wanted to work, and she had no connections there. She barely knew this woman. And her instinct was to write to her. The woman's name was Susie, and say, hey, I remember you because our sons played soccer together 10 years ago. And I see you work at UC Santa Cruz, and I'd love to work there. And I said, put the brakes on, just connect with her. So she did. And Susie connected with her right away. And then she did step two, which was to say, thank you for connecting. Susie, I'm really interested in working in academia. I'd love to meet for lunch sometime and just learn more about what you do there. It was kind of a soft pitch. And Susie ghosted her. But what she didn't know was for the year that Susie ghosted her, 10 months it was, that Susie ghosted her, that she would not have been connected to her if she had gone in with the loaded request. Susie was watching her and kind of keeping a notice of all the things that Asta was posting about biomedical engineering, which is what was her field.
Because I just want to make this caveat is you should be doing some type of posting. And I think that's in the LinkedIn. Is that in one of the sections?
It probably is.
Yeah, it's in one of those things, but you should be trying to be a subject matter.
She was just posting once a week.
Posting, yeah.
And because they were connected, Susie was seeing it in her feed. And when the head of the department was looking for someone to come in and help run his internship program in the biomedical engineering department at UC Santa Cruz, Susie reached out to Asta. And Asta, oh my God, I can't believe and then she said
it was her dream job.
Her dream job. And she wasn't really that well qualified, and she had a 16-year career gap. But Susie said to her specifically, I saw how diligent you've been on LinkedIn, how much you've been really learning about our field, how interested you are, the interesting stuff you're posting. And I thought, I've got to give this person a shot.
Yeah.
So, and there is something in there about how to take this approach. It's very simple. One last thing on connecting on LinkedIn. One of the best places to go is to the alumni page, not the alumni network, but the alumni tab on your college or university, undergrad or graduate. Go there, click on alumni, go to the school page, click on alumni, and then in the filters, type in people who have project manager in their job title, or maybe you're looking for people who work at ESPN, just because that's in my head. Or you're looking for people in your geography. You can filter it down, and you might find 20 people that work at the company in the area that you live that you want to network with. And the only connection you have is that you went to the same university, but it's a really strong connection. People from your university will almost always connect with you, maybe 90% of the time. And then you have maybe a 50-50 shot that they'll talk to you.
And that same strategy applies to old companies that you worked for. If you worked for a major company, you can do the exact
because they usually have an alumni network.
Right. Yeah, because actually that speaks to Emily's question in the chat. What about reaching out to colleagues from 10, 15 years ago? Send them a LinkedIn message. 30 years ago.
Absolutely. And old clients as well. So it's really interesting to reach out to old colleagues, because especially if you've been out of that job for a while, because it's kind of cool to see where they go. Right? Many of them won't be staying at that old employer either. Well, this is a great way. Who was I just working with? Someone, just the private client just this week. Oh, no, it was my nephew. He works in medical device sales, and he's looking to get into another company. And as soon as he started doing some digging, we were doing some digging together on a screen share, and he's like, oh my God, my old boss from 4 years ago is working at this company where I work right now. And it was like, aha, moment, great moment. So absolutely reach out. And the thing is, you may think they don't remember you. They remember you.
And also,
and they're happy to hear from you.
Don't overlook your adult children, friends, their connections too. They might have been somebody that you schlepped around to soccer practice, 15 years ago, but they're now working at a company or an organization. We have had students. We actually had one student who she started her career in GM. Yeah.
And she was an automotive engineer, but she was the one that had a 23-year gap.
Yeah.
And she ended up getting a job at Waymo, which is Google's electric car company. But she got it because her son, who was 24, had a job at Google. And one day he just said, Mom, give me your resume. I'm just gonna and he literally marched over to the Waymo people and said, hey, you should talk to my mom. And so now we're talking electric cars. The last feature she worked on was fuel injection engines in like the 90s. But she still landed a job because she had, to Rob's point earlier, those foundational skills, that institutional knowledge. She knew how a car worked.
Yeah.
It's just that the way it works is different now.
And I just want to say one more thing about the networking tracker that I popped in the chat too.
Oh, that's a good one.
When you are networking, it can get really overwhelming and chaotic. Like, who was I talking to? This happens to us when we're
What did I
networking
say?
to come speak to different
Yeah,
organizations where, do we follow up with that person? Did we not? So we actually created a tracker just recently for you to use. It's something that you can download and it's fillable. So you can use that. So you are tracking and you are making sure that you don't let it, somebody slip through the cracks, because it can
definitely.
be that one conversation, that one connection that you follow up on, or, you connect with, that can land you that job.
I love that. And a couple more questions that came in, and this one got a +1, so I definitely want to ask this from Roshunda, saying, if you don't have a lot of filler experience during your career break, does that leave you at a disadvantage? How should you package that? And
Mhm.
Kelsey was responding, yeah, I got laid off last August, and a lot of this break has been mental health break.
Mhm.
So not necessarily filling it with, other projects. So like if people are taking kind of break and not doing these other things in
Yeah.
between, is there a
Mhm.
specific way they should be packaging that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So you don't need to have a lot.
Thing. Yeah.
So that's why that section, let's say someone who's been out for 10 years, I'm gonna take a longer one. During those 10 years, they might not have done any volunteer work for 5 of those years. And maybe during those 10 years, they did, maybe 5 different events over 10 years. You're not showing that I did this event from here to there and this event from here to there. You're just talking in general themes. So you might just put, I might just put SRD, project management. So, and then maybe a statement saying, in my community and nonprofits, I led development efforts and did marketing communications. Select engagements include, and then 3 things. I worked at the local land trust. I worked at a nonprofit that built sports infrastructure, and I worked at, was on the library board, right? Just 3 things. Those 3 things may have only kept taking 1 year out of the 10. So we're not assigning time value to it. It's not that specific. It's just capturing that time. And Kelsey, in your case, you've only been out for a year. My general feeling is a year in an economy like this or a labor market like this doesn't need any explanation, right? It takes a year to get a professional job. No one's going to hold that against you. Um, and in your case, you weren't able to do things because you were dealing with your own health. And that's perfectly fine. No need to tell me that if I'm a hiring manager. If they say, what's taking you so long? You could just say, you know what? I worked for a long time. And the first few months after my layoff, I just took them off. And I dabbled and I did I read, or if you want to, embellish it a little bit, I, reconnected with old colleagues. You do not owe anyone an explanation about your own health. That can only backfire for you. But anything, a year to year and a half, you don't have to say a whole lot. Okay.
Love that.
Yeah.
Great answers. I
Mhm.
want to move on to a couple of questions around like continuing to build up those skills. Obviously, the thing that we're talking about more and more now is AI literacy, AI skills. And one
Yeah.
thing I'll always say to people is even if the job description doesn't say AI in it, you probably have to know how to use AI. Now, I've talked to a lot of recruiters who said, the JDs actually haven't been updated to really include these. So I think it's always good to assume that this is AI is going to be necessary. So how can professionals stay current on AI literacy, especially as this field is obviously moving very quickly?
So there are 2 ways to look at it. Let's talk about it in the more general sense, because AI as an industry is kind of a separate
Yes.
topic.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of general AI, the best way to build your skills is to integrate it into your daily life. So using, tools that you can use for managing your household or your personal, like Trello, like Notion. Those are 2 that really work well outside of a traditional work paradigm. Not being afraid of using it, playing with it a little bit. I think we mistakenly assume that we're going to walk into a company and need to know AI. AI is really smart. You don't have to be that smart to use AI. And most companies are creating their own tools. They have proprietary tools. They're going to show you how to use it. My biggest concern is that many companies are putting so much pressure on their employees, use AI, that we're forgetting how to think. So I think there's the value and making sure, and we have a video, we did a YouTube on AI.
Where,
on
like, how to,
We'll find it. We'll give it to you, Rob, because that might be hard to find on the
Yeah.
fly.
Sure.
We did a YouTube video just on, I think it might have been a multi-part one too, just on how to prepare for AI and even in an interview, how to talk about AI. What's really important when it comes to AI is that you're not afraid of it. That's the basic threshold, that you're not afraid of it, that you understand that it is a tool. It's equally important to understand how your skills cannot, or which of your skills cannot be replicated by AI.
Yes.
So really leaning into the human element. So there was a question that was submitted to us ahead of time for a technical writer who might be, a technical writer. A lot of technical writing can be offloaded to AI, but you still need the person to do the prompting, right? To create the syntax around that prompt, because the AI can't think, not yet. We don't have that, what is it, AGI yet? We have still regular AI that thinks like a bot. You still need to be the person that prompts it properly. So there will be fewer jobs in writing fields. You just need to make sure that you're pitching yourself as the person that really knows how to prompt AI so that the output is exquisite. That's what we're looking for. So
Yeah.
understanding your role, not being afraid, but do not hold yourself to the standard that I have to show up knowing all of their AI tools. You don't. Nobody does.
Yeah.
And the
We
thing is,
just
it's a
Yeah, we
move.
just did a hiring event for a very big corporation, and they were even hesitant to put a couple of AI questions into the hiring kind of panel because they wanted to stress, for us, it's about those core skills. Like you have to still be a good writer if you're using like generative AI. You still have to understand data if you're using AI to sort that data, right? So it still
Sort it
comes down to those skills.
and proof it, right? Because it doesn't always, I mean, the AI bots are designed to make you happy. So if you just do this is a simple exercise, ask a simple question to ChatGPT or Claude, and then when it
great
gives
idea.
and then when it gives you the answer, to say, you know what, that just doesn't make any sense to me, or I don't think that's true, and then automatically the first thing you do is apologize. You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't think this through. And then they give you the other. So they're not that sophisticated. I will say this though, because we did touch on ageism for a moment ago. If you are older, and there's the assumption that you're not as comfortable. The digital natives are those, people who are under 40. The non-natives are the people who are over 40. One good thing to do in an interview to show that you are maybe not digitally native, but you're digitally astute, is to ask a question about AI. How do you
Yes.
integrate AI into this department that I'd be joining? What tools are you using? What role do you see playing? How has your use so far impacted your output? These are good questions to show that you are thinking about AI if you're someone that might be assumed not to be.
Yeah, because as I said, you might be applying for a role. It's not mentioned whatsoever in there. I guarantee you they're using it in some way. So I think that's a great way to kind of preempt that.
Mhm.
And love to just jump in a few last questions before we run out of time. Diane was asking, started working on a tech startup independently, did a lot of foundational work, a good 6 to 9 months of work, but stopped at creating the MVP. Had to stop due to a medical crisis. I couldn't do anything for a year and a half. Use the startup work as a job on my resume because it was work I did. How does that look while job searching, interviewing?
I think it's a really easy one to explain because
Yeah.
the vast majority of startups fail. And
Yeah.
it was not your fault. You were there as an advisor. So I would create, I would couch it as an advisory role, a paid role, but an advisory role, as opposed to like not being the startup person, because then it's kind of more your failure, which is fine too if you were, but it sounds like you were more an advisory role. And then stretch the dates by using years and not months. For any of you who have been working in a startup, we're often doing those roles underpaid. Sometimes we're unpaid, and that's fine. It's still work. But one of the things that you can negotiate with the person you were serving as an advisor or as a consultant is, I'd like to stretch the dates of this employment. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
And not just to ask permission. Any role where you've been underpaid, unpaid, or in some type of advisory capacity, you can also have some leeway with what you call yourself. I always do suggest that you talk to the person you were working with, say, hey, Rob, are you okay if I kind of frame this as me being, advisor to the CEO. It just
Yeah.
makes you comfortable, but you have some creativity there.
And I
So interesting, Diane, just so that you don't feel so alone. We actually had a student who something very similar happened to her. She was working with startups and
Stephanie.
yes, yeah. And then she ended up with breast cancer. So she had to take time away. And when she came Tara, when she came to work with us, she really repackaged that. And now she has just this phenomenal career and she's very much in charge of her, trajectory. So, so just know that you're not alone.
And I would also say, Diane or anyone else, if your startup got a round of funding while you were working with them, that's definitely something to highlight. So like, hey, my startup got $2 million from a VC, and because that would be directly tied to your work time there. So like, I think anything like that, I would definitely highlight.
Yeah. And Rob, I just want to say one more thing because I put something in the chat. I hope you're okay with this. This was a webinar we did for the Mom Project, but it speaks specifically to the tricky career gaps. So if you had a child with special needs and you ended up staying home longer than you thought, if you had a mental health crisis and you needed to opt out,
if you yourself were sick,
if you yourself were sick, if you had a sick spouse. This is a webinar that helps you tell that career break story. It walks you through
without oversharing.
Because here is the other thing too. We often think that we have to give the store away on why we took this career break. These are not your people. This is not your best friend. These are not your, the people that picked you up and supported you through that time. They need to know an inkling of what it is. And it's often a lot less involved than you think. And so that particular webinar will help you do that. People earn the right to hear the real heavy lifting that went on during that time. I mean, you don't have to share that with everybody. And that could be a terrible divorce that you went through, the death of a spouse, whatever it might be. But we do feel compelled to explain it away, and you don't have to do that. That's reserved for the people that love you. Okay.
I love that. And as we wrap up here, just want to throw to both of you, Kelley and Susan, like if there was just one thing that people watching this, joining us today could do tomorrow, maybe it's a small thing, maybe it's a big thing. What would just that one thing be if they had to like tie it down to one thing, if they're helping on a career pivot, on a break, or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably just say what you said. I mean, it really starts here. If you don't believe it yourself, if you don't believe that your career break was meaningful, that the work that you did matters, if you believe that you're the only one out there and no one's going to want you, if those are the voices that you're hearing, no matter how well you follow any of the templates that we provided, they're not going to be effective. So start with yourself and know that you're not that unusual. And that what you've done is what most people do along a long continuum of a career.
And then I would just say, find a place or a space or a group or a partner or someone that makes you not have to do this process alone. And I'm not just saying that because we run programs, because that sounds so,
it could just be a friend.
That sounds so salesy, but it's not that. We have witnessed, and even when we ran our pilot a million years ago now, the pilot students came back to us and said, we need a group of people to do this with. We don't want to be doing it alone. And we have witnessed, when you do it with other people, you are so much more successful. You are so much more motivated when you hit the mat because you got the rejection after the third interview with whoever it is that you were of your dream job. You have people that really understand and can pick you back up again. So even if it's finding someone in the Power to Fly community that you can partner with and help you navigate this process, because it's not a fun process, and it's filled with a lot of rejection. And we are human beings and we don't love rejection. So knowing that you can be connected to other people who can help move you forward when you hit the mat, that's really important. That's what keeps you going, because it's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight, and you need people to sustain you through.
And to her point about rejection, your time is better well spent over a week sending out or having 5 meetings, conversations, communications with 5 potential human beings who can help you get a job than submitting 500 or even 5,000
Yes.
applications.
Mhm.
If you walk away with nothing else from a tactical
Yeah.
perspective, know
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is Power to Fly actually now has a brand new, completely free Slack community called PTF Connect. So
Yeah.
if you want to connect with fellow job seekers, professionals, free to
Oh,
join. We will send out the link to that.
great.
It is invite only right now, but we'd love to invite everyone here. And also Kelley and Susan are going to do an Ask Me Anything there in the next couple of weeks. So check that out. Kelley and Susan, thank you so much for all of
Welcome.
this. You're getting lots of love in the chat. This was amazing. If you are joining us live, make sure you click all the amazing links that they shared. If you're watching the recording of this, we will be sending out links to a lot of these resources. So check your inbox. And if you're watching this maybe even at a later date, we'll make sure that there's a blog post or other ways that you can find this, or of course in the PTF Connect Slack group as well. But thank you both so much for all this
Thanks for
amazing
having us, Rob.
advice.
Rob, we always enjoy
Yeah.
spending our time with you
Rob
too,
is
Rob.
really good. We
He
do a
is.
lot of,
Thank you.
We
you
love
are like
Rob.
next
Thank
level.
you. And do want to just give one shout out to everyone else who's watching, whether you're watching this live or watching the recording.
Yeah.
You took this time out to better yourself, to take that step in your career. So whether it's a big gift or a small gift or walk around the block, give that to yourself as well. But we'll be back soon with more events here at Power to Fly. And until then, thank you all and have a great rest of your day.
Yes. All right. Take
Thanks,
care, everyone.
guys.
Bye.
Rob, great to see you.
Thanks.